Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you with us in Ramadan workshops that Abu Dhabi University hosting and conducting with several topics and several workshops. In Abu Dhabi University, actually, we have several colleges and several departments. One of those colleges is College of Arts and Science. Under College of Arts and Science, we have Department of Education. Through Department of Education, we offered several programs. One of those programs is Master of Special Education. Like if you need to know more about the Master of Special Education program, please don't hesitate. You can put your questions on the Q&A part or the chatting part, and we will return back to you to give you more information about this specific program. Abu Dhabi University is one of the internationally accredited universities. We have more than 44 postgraduate programs in addition to undergraduate programs for each college. Our workshop today, actually, it's a specialized workshop about assistive technology, and we have our best colleague, best friend. Actually, I want to introduce him, but whatever I said, I'll take maybe hours introducing Mr. Camille Matta. Mr. Camille Matta, he's actually one of the pioneers in an assistive technology field. His background is applied mathematics and computer science graduate from University of Houston, Texas. He spent over 33 years working on the field of information technology. Around 40 years of them working on assistive technology. He's like over the last 14 years, Mr. Camille began the work of teaching assistive technology in the Middle East among centers, therapists, and parents of special needs children by providing energetic, innovative, and practical guidance for parents, for centers, also for implementing and delivering and training program for of special needs software, hardware, and educational tools. He is a member of ISAC. Also, Mr. Camille attended and participated in many international training and seminars, which enhanced his knowledge and experience in the assistive technology. Mr. Camille attended and completed several ICT and specialized assistive technology training course, adding to his knowledge in the field. He's an active speaker and presenter and trainer in the field of assistive technology, in addition to his ability to perform and assist in providing assistive technology assessment for people with a special need. So it's a pleasure to welcome you, Mr. Camille, with us today. And please, it's yours now.
Thank you, Ramadan Kareem, everyone.
Just 1 second, Mr. Camille. If for the colleagues, if they want to ask any question, they can raise their hand. So we will allow them, or they can write on the chatting, and then we can answer their questions. Sorry again.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. In principle, you have the chance to ask questions in the chat on your screen at any time you want. Okay, please feel free to do that, and Dr. Fatiha will help me get quickly to those questions. Basically, today we are going to introduce assistive technology and try to get you to be more familiar on how the technology is here to be used as a tool, not only as an accessible method or not only as an alternative method. So what are we going to do is we're going to do some basic classification, make an introduction. And what I would like to start, if you don't mind, Mr. Hamad is going to send you now a vote. I think it's some sort of a vote where I would like to understand more. If you see now, you're going to get a vote, a poll in front of you. And if you don't mind, please, can you please select if you are a student of university or outside university, if you are a practicing therapist or teacher, if you're a parent or carer of someone with a disability or special needs, and if you're none of the above. So if you can just check mark the button for me, I'd really appreciate that. So we will have a little bit of understanding of who is attending this presentation. And the reason for this, because in the follow-up email that you're gonna get, we're trying to understand if we can present like follow-up topics that you can benefit from. So I want to know more on who is asking these questions. Okay, I would like to start. I'll share my screen. Today I have two things that I'm doing. I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation while I'm speaking to you. And in the same time, while I'm doing this, you are going to see some of the assistive technology tools. Here's one of my friends. And you'll see that I have other devices. And then I'm going to try to show these devices on my camera. So what I would do is while I'm doing my sharing of the screen, I will stop the share and then give you a better view on the camera. Okay, so bear with me if I make mistakes with juggling the screens. Okay, let's start. Basically, I am going to share my screen, which is this one. And if anything goes wrong, please stop me. Here we go. I think, yeah. So can you all see my screen? So basically, today we're going to talk about assistive technology in a way that I'm setting the ground for any time you and I speak in the future. Basically, what we're trying to show is how do we define assistive technology and what is it? Okay, and then how we're going to work with it in our daily life, either as a parent or as a therapist, or as a teacher, or as a student. All right. So now I would usually start by telling you that assistive technology, the main definition that was a few years ago, it says it's any item or device that has been produced off the shelf, has been taken off the shelf, and it's been modified and customized to increase the functionality or the capability of a child or a student with a disability. So technically what it is, it's any device that's been mainstream technology, not like someone went to IBM and said, create technology special for me. No, it's actually generic technology that exists on the shelf that's been modified to allow someone to be able to use a computer or reach an information or be able to communicate. And this is usually what I start with, always saying that anyone with special needs that requires the technology has the right under the law to communicate or access or learn. Now, the reason I mention this is for you to understand that in our Middle East and North Africa and the Gulf region in general, we have ratified the United Nations laws, and we have agreed that every single person that has a disability has the right to access anything around him, like anyone without a disability, and at the same time has a right to communicate, and he has the right to learn. Now, the reason I'm saying this, because if you remember the changes that happened over the last 15, 20 years, everything is shifting towards the being present on the internet. And the situation we're in right now is the best proof. For example, if you look at us now, we're presenting not in person, we're presenting over the internet. But if someone doesn't have access to open Zoom on his computer or on his phone, he doesn't have an access to ask a question, how can he do that without a technology? This is why the internet, being the drive or the platform that everything is carried on top of it, became a right. So you're going to hear in the near future that we're not going to ask anymore for someone to have the right to technology. We're going to have for someone to have the right to the internet. He needs to have access to the internet, because the internet has become the underlying platform that connects everything from your fridge to your car, to your door alarm, to your mobile, to everything in your life. Okay, so the internet has become a right. Okay, now I know I took long on this slide, but it's very important because this is what's going to drive the future. This is what's going to drive your apartment being controlled by Alexa and you or not. This is going to decide if you can, if you cannot speak, would you be able to make a phone call over the voice over IP, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to move on to tell you that this technology also, because we're making it, we're giving it as a right, also helps people get the right back. How do we do that? Why do we say that? Because on several occasions, someone with a severe disability was able to communicate to his carer or his family that he needs the technology. And a best example is when Facebook one time stopped some applications from working on eye trackers used by some children with cerebral palsy. The children wrote a letter to the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and they told him, we want our access back. And he gave them the access back. So the technology will empower people to be able to go back and get their rights. One thing and this is directed on the students. For those of you who said we're students, or for the teacher teaching you, please don't confuse assistive technology with AAC. Some people that read some books many years ago still think that AAC is the assistive technology platform, while AAC is only part of it. So augmentative alternative communication is part of the assistive technology, all right? So if someone says, I know very well what I'm doing, I am an AAC specialist, that does not mean this person knows everything about assistive technology. So please, if you've read it somewhere in a book, if you have been told that you are an expert on AAC, expand your horizon and move on to something bigger. Move to assistive technology. And AAC is usually any device that allows you to communicate. So it's an augmentative way of communication, and it's not a way to access. It's not a way to control. It's not a way to learn. This is why I'm telling you, don't make that mistake. AAC is only part of assistive technology. Now, assistive technology in general is usually divided into several levels. And when we divide it in levels, and then you will see, as you will see now in my first slide, the levels rely on the technology level. For example, if we say we have no tech or low tech, which means the technology is very basic. Usually it's a small circuit board, one battery, or no technology at all. It's just something that is an alternative way of accessing or communicating or thinking or behaving. So the way you look at now, we have schedules that are made either with voice or without voice, that these schedules are made usually at a low level. It's very basic technology. So this is one of the way we classify assistive technology. Then we move on to the second classification, which is called mid-tech. Mid-tech, in general, is anything that does not require a high-end technology. High-end, which means complicated computer technology that requires a lot of work and a lot of research and development. So I'm going to show you some examples, and this is the great time to come in and show you some of the devices. For example, here's a simple device. This is a simple device. I'm going to actually switch the camera back. Let me switch the camera, stop, so you can actually see this. This will probably show bigger. So for example, if I can come to this device and in the back, I can record and I would say, my name is Camille, Ramadan Kareem. And then by simply pressing it,
my name is Camille, Ramadan Kareem.
The idea is I was able, with a push of a button, to communicate, to say something. And it could be a sentence, or it could be a sequence of sentences. And I will do an example in a minute. All right. I'm going to go back to sharing. I apologize for swapping between them because that's the only way I know how to do it. Of course, here we go. And then I'm going to move on to showing you also other technology that is, for example, technology that is used for communication. Again, it's a portable technology, which we'll demonstrate in a bit. And the high-end technology, and then the reason I'm showing this slide is to show you that things have changed, and the technology is changing so fast. Now, long time ago, what they have done, they've linked the classification of the technology to low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech to the price. For example, in this slide, a touch screen, 5-6 years ago, a touch screen was very expensive. Okay, while and then also in your classrooms in university or in schools, a whiteboard or a smart board was extremely expensive. And now, at the moment, as we are speaking, it has become very cheap. Every one of you has a mobile that has a touchscreen. 99.9% of you. 1% of you probably have a fridge that has a touchscreen, or a car with a touchscreen. A lot of you have a watch that you can touch the screen of the watch. So the idea is that technology has become cheap. So I'm tempted to remove it from high end and move it back to mid-tech, because the technology is not that expensive anymore, and it's not that complicated. It's mainstream and it's very low. And then if you see here on the right, there's an eye tracker on the left, bottom left. There's an eye tracker that is like it's a very complicated piece of machinery that can easily be classified as high tech. I'm going to move on to start telling you that how I like to classify the technology. I like to classify the role of it. For example, I don't speak about low, mid, and high tech. I talk about what does this technology do? What is the role of it? And then I've done this over the last few years now by trying to fit the role of this technology in these 6 categories. And the role is, one of them is communication. And then how can we communicate using the assistive technology? One of them is how can we access, okay, how can we access the content using assistive technology? Or how can we control our environment using the technology? Or how can I use the technology as an integration of my sensory? For example, how can I go in and learn by being, for my eyesight and senses to be stimulated? So I don't learn by reading a text. I learn by seeing colors. I learn by sensation. I learn by smell. So we're talking about sensory integration that can also be integrated with technology that is accessible by someone with a disability. We will talk about apps, and the reason I have this category or role is because suddenly mainstream devices like iPads and iPhones and Android tablets and Android phones and Windows tablet suddenly have become a great tool for access and communication. And we will talk about it in a minute. And content and curriculum. When I talk about content and curriculum is, look at us now. Every single student is sitting at home and learning. For those that have access to a laptop or a tablet, and for those that have their electronic curriculum, their lessons online in an organized manner, they are doing well. They're struggling, but they're doing well because they can sit at home in their pajamas and shorts, whatever they want to sit, on the sofa, on the bed, on the floor, but they can access, using the technology that they have now, the mainstream technology, they can access that curriculum. Well, what can I do when I have someone with autism or someone with cognitive issues or with a low IQ that requires some, or attention deficit and requires some special routines that require for him to use an accessible technology. He needs to use tools to get him into, to be like a normal or like a generic access student that we have now. So in the days of COVID-19 now, we have many additional victims, silent victims, that we don't know about. These are the students that suddenly found themselves locked out from their curriculum because some of these students have access to the curriculum in the schools, but they do not have it at home. And this is where things are going to start changing slowly, okay? Now let me jump in very quickly into access. And in this screen here, as you will see, we have multiple ways of accessing the information. For example, how can I, and I'm going to switch back, I don't know, Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Fatiha, can you tell me if I show, for example, this switch, oops, sorry. If I show the switch on the screen, do you actually see it, or I need to switch back from my presentation?
No, it's clear. It's there. Yes, we can see it.
It's clear? Okay. Sorry if you guys have to squint, but basically, we have, I'm going to show several kinds of these switches. And the reason I'm showing the switches is if I don't have the skills to touch a mouse, if I don't have the skills to touch a mouse to make a click, all right? If I don't do that because my hand is physically not able to move a mouse, how do I have access to using a mouse on a computer? And usually, if I'm trying to use a touch screen, as you would know, using a touch screen, I would be using a full hand sometimes, or not a straight hand. And then when I try to touch, I may be able to make multiple touches, or I would touch and drag my hand like this. So I won't be able to make a proper touch. And this is a problem that is readily...
I just say one comment, sorry, there. If the audience wanted to see you on a big screen, they need to double click on your small picture down, then your picture will be big on the screen. So they have the control, the audience, they have the control to show you as big on the screen or show the presentation as big by double clicking on the part they want. Now, for example, for me, I double clicked on your picture. Now I can see you full on the screen and the presentation small down.
Very good. Okay. All right. So now, so if I'm going to show some examples of these switches that we're talking about, because I can, for example, use the switch using my chin, using my mouth, or I could be using my cheek. I could be using a switch with my head. And all I do is I connect, basically the switch, the job of the switch is to connect these two wires together. That's all it does. Now, a lot of you will say, well, what can I do with the connection? If I connect the wires together, what does it do? Well, it could be that if I touch that switch, it clicks on a space bar on my computer. And by clicking on space bar, I can start or pause a video, for example, as simple as that. So I am in control of what I am watching, okay? So if we look at, oh, no. That's my friend here. When we start teaching someone how to use switches, we usually teach them to use a switch that can activate a toy. Because usually the toys are activated by pressing here, which I cannot do if I have some disabilities or physical disability. So usually what I would do is I would use, now you would ask me, how does this fit with learning or access? If it's a cognitive disability, where I need to learn how to organize my thoughts and have access to something, usually I will have to be looking at symbols, and these symbols are supposed to give me a result. For example, this one is about washing my hands. So if I touch here, I should be able to hear or say to someone that I want to wash my hands. Or it could be a routine, or it could be a video, it could be anything. So what I'm trying to say is, if I have a picture of the teddy bear here, and as soon as I touch, the teddy bear will work, okay? Now, this is basically called cause and effect. And cause and effect in general is as simple as teaching someone that if I touch a symbol or a picture on a switch or anywhere else, it could be on a touch screen, I would get a result. I would get something back. And that usually allows children with cognitive learning issues to learn that they could easily organize their thoughts. They could easily organize the way they have access to technology. Now, what I would like to do, I would like to talk very quickly about the rest, which is, if you see on the screen, the special trackball, which I can use with my hand, my elbow, I can use with my foot. There are special keyboards, and these keyboards are 1 inch. Every button is this big, and they also come with a plastic key guard. So if I put my full hand, on the keyboard, only one finger goes inside the slot to be able to select the keys. And this is good for people that have issues like either visual impairment, or for example, their hand is shaking, they cannot use proper finger pointing, or they cannot coordinate they don't have proper eye-hand coordination, and it takes them a while to decide where their hand needs to go. So a lot of this is usually using these special big keyboards. If you notice also, we have on the left, in the bottom on the left, there is something called the Bluetooth switch. This is a switch that allows you to connect your iPad to your computer. And by touching the switch, you can do anything you want. You can click on next, you can click on left click, right click. You can do any command that is programmable. So technically, if I have any physical or cognitive disability that I want to have access to a computer, I have ways of accessing the computer. Other than a touch screen, I can use special tools like special keyboards, special mice, special trackballs, head mouse, special switches. I could be using any part of my body that can make that touch to have access to the computer. Sorry. Now, if I'm sitting on a wheelchair, or if I'm sitting in bed, how do I have access to that switch? Usually, the switch needs to be somewhere where I can reach it, correct? So for me to reach it, if I'm sitting in a wheelchair, we usually have something called mounting options. And the mounting options, same like if you're in your car, driving your car, and you want to have, for example, access to your mobile. So what you would do is you'll have a special mount for your mobile on your dashboard. So this mobile will be placed in front of you where you will have access to touch it. Same thing if you're sitting on your wheelchair. And these tools are usually used on a wheelchair, coming into a classroom, wheelchair sitting at home in front of a TV, sitting in front of a computer, or it could be in a cafeteria, anywhere, in a bus, as long as it will allow me to have access to a keyboard or a tablet or a phone or a switch. Next will be communication. The next role of the technology is communication. Again, imagine someone that cannot speak. Usually it's either because of a physical disability or because of mental cognitive issues. And a lot of these children or students, they have the skills and what we call something we call pre-verbal so these guys, they actually, they can think and they can try to speak, but they cannot. Something is not allowing them to speak. Now, in my presentation today, I'm not being very technical with terms considered specialized for speech therapists. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show you that this technology exists. And then when we go into something about communication specifically, then we will be talking more about classification. We're talking more about how do we diagnose and how do we assess and how do we decide which technology is used by which child or which student. But I'm going to give you a small example from our days now with COVID-19. So for example, here's a sheet that shows you that I can communicate about COVID-19. And these are things that I could be, sorry, here's the camera. And here's one that tells people that you need to use a mask, cough into your hand, wash with soap, and no handshaking, something like that. Now, how do I, if I'm nonverbal, how could I use something like that to communicate? And I'm going to communicate this to someone by placing it in a device. And this device, if you see, I have these papers in, and I would simply go turn it on, go into, I think it's already in Arabic.
استخدم منظف للأيدي به أساس كحولي. غطي فمك عند السعال أو العطس.
I don't know if you can actually hear it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to record in front of you in English. So I'm going to go like this. Use alcohol-based disinfectant when you're washing your hands. Wash your hands thoroughly with water and soap for 20 seconds. Always wear a mask. When you're coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth with your hand. So for example, now I have a way of saying things.
Wash your hands thoroughly with water and soap for 20 seconds.
I'm not going to go with more details other than this to show you that all I have to do now is present someone that is pre-verbal or non-verbal, but usually we call them pre-verbal because someone is trying to actually express. They will present them with a way to touch, either using a switch or using a...
Always wear a mask.
They will be. So we are including them in communication by allowing them to communicate using these simple devices like this. Or if you notice here, I have more options. Here I've got like 20 options, and these pages can change, and you have 5 levels. So I have 100, I have 100 symbols and vocabulary that someone can have access to. Now, you would ask me, why don't we do this on an iPad? Usually it's very easy to do on iPad if I can make a proper touch. But if I do a smear, if I touch the iPad or if I put my hand like this and smear it, it's not a proper touch. So usually these devices, if you notice, they have like a plastic border. It's called a key guard or a guard that allows your finger to go in. And if your finger is vibrating, it doesn't, like if it's you have a tremor or if your finger is not stable, it doesn't come out and touch the other cells. Usually when we work with children that have cognitive issues or when we're teaching them the basic art of symbol communication, we start with one single message to a dual message to 4, and then we move on to 9, and we move on to 20, 32, and then we keep increasing their options. And if you will see the applications that are available now on iPad or on Windows, Windows-based computers, touchscreens, usually these applications are made with a core of vocabulary that is specialized for giving a child the basic set of verbs and nouns, pronouns, and adjectives to be able to form a sentence. Now, how does this change life? it allows someone to go and order a burger on their own when they open the malls or when they open the restaurant. It will allow someone to place an order on the phone and speak with their own device voice, which is their voice. It will allow someone to say in the classroom, could you please repeat? It will allow someone to express themselves or say thank you to a bus driver or a taxi driver. So what I'm trying to say is a simple base of a simple communication is a great tool, because this assistive technology tool empowers people to be able to be partially independent. Now, remember the sentence I'm going to say. I'm saying partially independent. Now, partially independent is one of the strongest examples of empowering someone with disability. Now, remember the sentence because I'm going to repeat it again. I'm going to move on to the next slide. And then this next slide is about environmental control. And this is changing by the minute. Every single thing in your house in the next few years is going to be fitted with internet access. So what you're going to have now is you're going to have something called what we call the Internet of Things, IoT. You'll study about it in college, or you'll read about it more when you're moving around. IoT, the Internet of Things, is the existence of internet everywhere around you. Not in your phone only, not in your computer, not in your watch, but in your microwave, in your air conditioner, in your door, in your garage, in your car. Everywhere, in your temperature sensor, your alarm system, everything is going to be controlled by your environmental internet. Now, how do I control it if I don't have ways of touching a screen? How can I control it if I cannot speak? If I cannot give a command to Siri or Alexa or Google or God knows who? How do I do that? I usually do it with specialized devices. And these specialized devices are used by either someone with cognitive issues, or someone with physical issues, or someone with tremors, like an elderly. I'm not gonna give an example on this. I'm gonna move on because I wanna talk about sensory integration. Now, in sensory integration, what I would like you to know that many of you, at one point or another, if you are working with some sort of a disability, certainly the ones with cognition, you are going to walk into a sensory room. They will tell you it's a Smoothman or sensory room, and only few will appreciate the power of such a room, because some people have not been trained on how to integrate these sensory feeds into the normal routines. How can I benefit from the sensory tools or feeds to teach someone something, or not only to calm them down? I don't want to put someone there just to calm down. Like if they're hyperactive, or just like, okay, they're hyperactive, I'll just put them in the sensory room and they'll calm down. No, it has to be there where they will learn by interacting with the light, by interacting with the smell, by interacting with the vibration, the motion, the air, everything inside the room. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of examples. One of them, the first one is a video on something called HubSpot. HubSpot is simply teaching children by having them jump on or touch these discs on the floor. Let me see how big is this video. If it's too big, I'm going to stop it. It's a YouTube video, so I hope it's going to show.
Research shows that children learn significantly better when they also move throughout classroom activities. But it can be time-consuming and difficult to prepare active and moving teaching material that engages pupils in their own learning. That's why we have created HubSpot, an interactive learning tool that consists of 12 interactive wireless spots that are connected to an iPad and a speaker system. HubSpots comes with different educational games that focus on movement, cognitive training, language learning, and programming.
I'm going to stop here because I have more videos to show you. Now, the reason I showed you this video because basically what we're trying to say here is someone can learn by moving their full body. They can jump and learn. They don't need to be using a switch. Now, even if they're on a wheelchair, they can roll their wheelchair on this switch. And we have one project coming up. Hopefully soon we'll put a video on it. Actually, this could be somewhere on the wall where you can throw a ball on it. I can throw a ball on a disc. So the idea is that I can make this technology accessible in a way that I can learn while I'm actually moving my body, okay? I want to show you something else. And if you see in this picture, there's a girl using her eyes to play soccer with a girl playing on the floor, okay? And this is a normal genetic interactive floor projection or a wall projection. And you've seen it. I mean, this is something that you have seen in the mall. You walk in and then you see something on the floor, and then as soon as you walk, something change or interact. Let me show you this video. If it wants to open. Yes, okay, here we go. Where is it? Here we go. And it is...
A mobile magic carpet is a really versatile system. It can be used in a whole variety of ways. We can project an image of about 1.5 meters all the way up to 4 meters wide.
Right, everybody, are you ready? Can you find 25, Alia? Go all the way around the outside. I was seeing the children having to show hand-eye coordination, awareness of others. They were having social interaction with each other. It's a huge tool to use in mainstream education.
We now have the ability for users to be able to control from any device. iOS, Android just makes it so much easier for users to actually work with the system.
What we use.
Again, I'm going to not show the whole video on purpose because I don't want to show like 5 minutes of this. But let me tell you, the power of someone sitting in a wheelchair not being able to move, and they are using their eyes to play with other kids in a sensory room. Can you imagine the power? Now, you would say, well, how is this related to education? Well, this is how I learn. I learn by involving my whole body. It's an immersive solution. It's an immersive experience. My whole body, my whole senses, everything is used to be able to control with my eye or control with a microphone. You know, if someone can only breathe. So if I have a microphone and all I have to do is breathe like this to be able to control a sensory room, you see the value of this. Now, these are severe cognitive issues that you probably will not face at a college, because in our region here, very few of strong disabilities, or let's say severe disabilities, very few of them reach the college levels. It's not of their fault, it's because we are not making them ready. But I've met some of these guys that actually, and girls that actually finish their master's and PhD while they are severely disabled, which means they're in a wheelchair, they need to be constantly cared for, they cannot even drive their wheelchair on their own, but they can use their eyes to study. So we're talking about a technology that can be easily modified to allow someone to access anything or to control anything. Now, one thing I want to mention to you, if you remember in my introduction, I talked to you, I told you about us now speaking over Zoom, and a lot of classrooms are using Google Meet, they're using Zoom, they're using several tools, Microsoft Teams, they're using a lot of tools to deliver the content. But what happens if that content is not digital? Let's say in 1 year, in preparation of 2020-2021 schools, which is the next year coming. Let's say if we make it all digital, well, what happens if I cannot have access to my tablet? If I'm a student, if you are a teacher, and I'm a student that cannot touch the screen, how would you teach me? How do you want me to answer your multiple questions? And this is where the assistive technology comes. This is where the assistive technology becomes an accessible tool to give someone access to that curriculum. But first, I need to make that curriculum or the content accessible to someone with disability. And that's a topic on its own. And then one day we will have presentation for 1 hour only on how do we make curriculum accessible, okay? And there's another topic on how do we make website accessible? How do we make computer software accessible? So there's tons of topics. So what we'd like to do is when we finish the presentation, you're gonna get an email from the university. Please, if you don't mind, please answer the survey. And inside it, there are gonna be some questions about which topics would you like to be involved in or do you would like to attend. This will give us an idea on how to prioritize these topics. This is a simple example on content and curriculum. Why do I need to make a content accessible? Because I simply have people that cannot see, for example. They cannot see properly, they cannot see colors. I'm colorblind, for example. But there are some people that cannot see any colors. There are some people that cannot see letters and numbers properly. So people with dyslexia or with dyscalculia, or people that have issues with noise and sound, and people with attention deficit. All these, they need a special way to present their content. If I have to ask someone 1 + 5 = to what? A simple way to ask a mainstream student is to ask him 1 + 5, and you put an equal, and you can give him a blank to answer with a 6, or you can give him 5, 6 options to pick from. But how do I do that with someone that is gonna use a switch like this? Or someone, oh, my teddy bear. Or someone who is going to touch this with their head. How can they answer 1 + 5 = to what using this switch? This is where you would learn how to do that when we talk about content and creation of content, or what we say accessible content. I'm gonna move on quickly about how the technology as a tool is used in diagnostics. Now, just imagine many of you, and then this is something that I was surprised to find out, many of you are gonna find some sort of, well, let me rephrase this. Many of you are going to work with some students that are going to be on the spectrum, but these students are going to be on the spectrum on different levels. So for example, they will be having some small attention deficit, or they will have OCD, or they'll have a little bit of autism where they cannot concentrate on something, or they cannot express. They are enclosed in the way they express themselves. My idea is like, how do I diagnose someone like that? And this is where some of the universities now, including Zayed University and some many major universities around the world, are actually conducting academic research into how can I have someone at the early age of 6 months look at something on the screen, and this will raise a flag if it could be a social behavior issues or not, which means do we have a preliminary diagnostic of a social dysfunction, which could be autism, or it could be something that I need to correct and intervene at a younger age. Now, here's a small example. If you see here, it says normal and it says autism spectrum. This is an eye tracker where if you look at this, you can see that someone without autism looks at the face of the girl, while someone with autism looks at things that are outside and avoid looking at the eyes in this area. Okay, this is one of the main aspect of looking at someone with disability, like autism or several forms of autism. Anyone in the spectrum that has issues looking at the eyes. So what we do is usually with someone like that is we try to use this by using the assistive technology to diagnose something like this. Okay, now this is very superficial. This is non-academic. What I'm saying to you right now ranks 1 on 100 in science. But if you want to go more into it, we could have one specific presentation working with tools to show you how looking at something on the screen can actually identify if you are within some range or some sort of a grade of a dysfunction or social behavior dysfunction. This is usually given to therapists that have a background with psychology or child psychology. Okay, I'm going to move on. No video. Okay, I'm going to move on. Let me stop the video. There was a video here, which I'm not going to show you. I'm going to move on to talk about robots and autism. And now you'll see this a lot in education. Many universities have created those robots. Students have done them as their project, where I would teach someone with issues of communicating or social behavior issues. I will teach them that a smile could be taught by a robot, and this is how I should function and react to it. Anyway, I'm not going to go into this. This is more very specialized, but I will move on to show you some examples. I can have a sensory experience in my room. I don't know how many of you are in Dubai or outside Dubai, but if you know Dragon Mart, you can buy half of your sensory items from Dragon Mart. And all I need to do is figure out how to make them accessible and how to make them properly to serve the need of your child. I'm going to move on very quickly. Here's an example of a spoon. This spoon, now you would say, why is this an assistive technology? Because this spoon allows someone with Alzheimer, well, let's say with Parkinson, someone with a tremor, someone with cerebral palsy, to be able to hold the mouse and hold the spoon, and they be able to have to eat by themselves. Okay. Now, why is this powerful? Because it gives someone a sense of being independent or partially independent, like I told you. The idea is I don't want you to think that this is a solution. Assistive technology is not a solution. Assistive technology is part of the solution. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one is, for example, here's let me show you this one. You're going to love this. This is a robot. And this is amazing in the days of Corona now and COVID-19, where if someone has like a severe disability like paralysis or quadriplegia or cerebral palsy, then they can eat them by themselves by simply touching the screen. Now, if this video decides to work, if not, I will tell you what it does. Maybe it's not going to work. Okay. It's not going to work. Does it? Actually, it should work. Come on. No, it's not going to work. All right, let me tell you what it does.
Actually, we
basically, and then I'm almost done, by the way. There's only 1 or 2 slides left.
There's a question Fawaz is asking about the spoon again. If you can just highlight it again and explain it.
Yes.
What was the spoon for?
Yes, let me actually go back. And there is a video about the spoon, and then hopefully the video will work, because basically this, here we go. I'm trying to save time, so I'm going to stop right there. But if you want, I would send you the link to these videos, or I can actually share with you the presentation in PDF format with these videos on them. Now, what it does, this spoon has a gyroscopic, and what it does is it has like a gyroscope technology that cancels the movement. So if my hands are vibrating, it will vibrate in the other direction to try to keep the spoon as stable as possible. Again, it's technology, and this technology is cheap. It's here to serve. The question is, why do I need it? Because here, talking to a lot of people, they say, yeah, the maid will feed him, when we're talking about someone like elderly. And the first thing I'm putting in my will, when I'm getting old and my hands are shaking, I'm telling my children, I don't want a maid to feed me. I want to feed myself. Even if my hand is shaking, I want to feel the power that I am still in control. This is why I go back to the same sentence. Partial independence or partial participation. I am in control. That's why I don't want someone to feed me. When you're older, you don't want to be a baby and someone is feeding you if you can eat by yourself. Now, of course, when the tremor becomes stronger, you won't be able to use this, but it's just a tool. There's another one of these that actually is a fork and it goes into spaghetti. And when you press the button, the spaghetti, it turns and it just collects the spaghetti for you to put it in your mouth. I think it's great. I want one because it's just a fun thing to turn the spaghetti. Can you imagine? Anyway, I'll move on very quickly and tell you about this robot. This robot, by simply touching, or if I'm looking with my eyes only. So let's say if I am quadriplegic, which means from the neck down, I cannot move. I want to eat. So all I have to do is look with my eyes on my computer and I tell the robot to feed me, or I can touch this with my head. So what it does, the robot arm will come, puts the food in my mouth, and when I'm done, I touch it again, it goes away. Okay, now the link, I will check it again. I don't know why it didn't work, but I was sure that it was working. For some reason, oh, here we go. There we go. That's it. So if you see someone, okay, I'm going to stop right here. But you get the point. The idea is that all I have to do is touch a switch or use my eyes, and then the food will come to my mouth. Okay. Now, one thing I want to show you also, this one very quickly. I hope this video works. This is someone, I think she's in college. I don't know about this video.
Hello.
Oh no, that's not it.
My name is Becky and I'm 15 years old. I use a computer, which I control with my eyes to speak.
I think having a voice is something you take for granted, and when you can talk.
Okay, I'm gonna stop because we're running out of time. But I want to tell you one thing. We're gonna have a session on eye tracking. I want to show you a small child driving his wheelchair using his eye tracker. And this is, we're talking about drag racing, Formula One, crazy little 11-year-old that has an eye tracker fixed on his wheelchair, and he mastered it in a way that he can actually drive inside the exhibition. Because we were at an exhibition, he was driving between us without hitting anyone. Okay, so let me just move on and say, I'm not going to talk more about this because these are apps that are available to help someone. This is epileptic. This is an epilepsy detector. You put it usually under the mattress, under the cover, and if someone has a spasm, epileptic spasm, the alarm will ring. Or if someone falls on the floor, this is used for children with autism. It's like a pressure vest. You pump air into it and it pressures the body. This is very good for keeping someone feeling that they are being hugged or they are and this is an example of an amazing person in Lebanon. His name is Dr. Jamil Zaib. Dr. Jamil Zaib passed away last year, but he did not pass away without spending 7 or 8 years using an eye tracker, and he wrote 9 books with his eyes, 1 word at a time. He taught students in university with his eyes on Skype. He made a lot of TV interviews. So if you get this presentation in the future, please check his name on YouTube and on Google and see what an amazing tool assistive technology can be in changing his life. Now, Dr. Jamil changed his life, the life of people around him, and the life of thousands of people around him in the Arab world and across in Europe. Now, how can someone be totally paralyzed, dying in bed, have this much power? Okay, this is what I want you to think of. And this is where I want to leave you with this thought, that this is not the end of my presentation. This is my beginning. This is the beginning of my presentation, because in the next presentations, I will tell you more in details on how you can apply these in details. And I go back to the word details because usually I do this in 4 hours. So today we did it in 61 minutes. So I apologize for taking longer than usual.
No,
Any questions, Dr. Fataha?
Thank you, Mr. Camille. It's really informative one, and I'm sure all our colleagues benefit. Yes, there is a couple of questions. Ms. Maimouna, she is asking, as a teacher who is not specialized on the assistive technology, how would identify the level of the tools? Because there is a variation between the tools that used for small kids or for later age. So how she can identify the level of those tools?
Correct. Usually, mainstream schools, they have someone called an assistive technology specialist, or they have someone that knows some basic assistive technology, all right, in schools, mainstream schools. And they usually help the teacher in figuring out which technology need to be applied. Because even if you know which technology, if your curriculum is not ready for it, then that school is useless in presenting to someone with disability. Same thing goes for universities. For example, I know many universities in our region here that has something called Student Support Center or Student Access Center. And usually those centers are for the disabilities that actually reach, for students with disability that actually reach university, which is someone in a wheelchair, someone with low vision, someone blind, or someone with hearing impairment. So you will find these special centers at your school, like units, let's not call them centers, units or departments at school or in universities that usually help you. Now, what we did, because we noticed that it's not available everywhere, we started slowly, over the last few years now, we started slowly supporting these teachers and the parents by helping them by identifying the tools that they require. And we usually do that with the help of some therapists. We don't do it on our own. We need therapists, and usually it takes from 4 to 8 sessions to be able to decide what type of tools need to be used and how they need to be used. And it includes also the training for the teacher. Now, teachers can learn on their own, but the trick is the teachers need to be, other than creative, they need to be curious. Curiosity is the key, because many teachers, unfortunately, they just want to finish 2 o'clock and 2:30 and 3 o'clock and leave, go home. So I would prefer, if you want to advance in any field, specifically assistive technology, there are amazing resources. Unfortunately, a lot of them are English, in the English or Latin languages, but they're easily modifiable to our language. Any other question?
The second question, are there programs or reports to rehabilitate the memory with the daily tasks such as washing teeth?
Yes, of course. Now, your best bet, and I think was Iqab Badarni on our list today?
Yeah, he is in our list.
Okay, all right. He's my mentor. He's my influencer on this. Find yourself an amazing occupational therapist, because occupational therapist is the person who is going to teach you and the parents and the child on how to build that routine, how to build that communication skills, how to build that sequencing. And when I say sequencing is because all I want to do is organize the thoughts. I want to organize the tasks. And to organize them, usually I need someone who knows how to deliver. And it could be in multiple ways. It could be through a sensory room, through throwing a ball at something. It could be by jumping. It could be by using a switch. It could be by using an iPad. It could be by simply looking at a piece of paper. It could be by simply looking at a piece of paper like this. So find yourself an amazing OT, and that person is gonna be the person that actually uses these tools. Now, from my point, like Camille Matta, Consort World, what I can do is I can point you to those tools. I can show you the way, but if you want to practice it properly and by the book, then you need to find someone who's actually studied as an OT.
Yes, Camille. There's a question about the price of those assistive technology. Is it an expensive ones? It's affordable by parents and the centers, or it's an expensive? Yep.
Okay. Okay. Let me go back on the issue of the price. The price depends on how complicated the technology is. For example, I can show you very quickly. Here's a very expensive technology. No, this is a very advanced technology. It's called an eye tracker. This eye tracker connects on my laptop, and it allows me to control my computer completely with my eyes. I don't need to say a word. I don't need to touch anything. I'll just look with my eyes, and I completely control my computer. Now, this technology is about $1,500. Okay? If I take the higher level of it, it's $15,000. But then if I come and use a switch like this, or a switch like this switch is $30, $40. Okay? Now, I'm saying them in dollars because some people may not use dirhams, or they're from different countries. This is like $150. So the idea of this one, things like that are less than $200. Now, there is expensive technology, but there's a very cheap one. You don't need to buy expensive ones. What you need to do is you need to buy something that is not dangerous to the child, okay? And this is what I usually beg therapists and parents to do. When you are buying a technology for your child, buy something that is not sharp around the edges, doesn't connect to the electricity, doesn't shock them, doesn't choke them. Make sure that you buy something that is made for disability, nothing that will hurt someone. So please, be careful when you're buying the technology, because sometimes you could find something cheap, but it will break easily. It could hurt someone.
We have two members who wanted to ask questions. I'll just allow them in.
Yes,
Alia,
yeah.
you need to unmute Alia and speak.
Do I unmute?
No, you don't need.
Oh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Could I speak in Arabic or no?
You can,
Yes.
It's fine, go ahead.
السلام عليكم. يعطيك العافية دكتور محمد ودكتور كميل، وشكرا للدكتور حماد. معلش أنا كثير يعني اهتميت بالموضوع، لأنه عندي حالة هي عبارة صلها 10 سنين، وهو حادث يعني الذاكرة القريبة شبه ملغية، بس الذاكرة البعيدة محتفظة فيها. مراكز التأهيل بأهله بدني بس ما بأهله الذاكرة يعني وطبعا هاي الحالة حتى يعني قبل 4 سنين قريب إلي كمان أصيب بحادث وهم أعمارهم بالعشرينات، ونفس الوضع. الذاكرة القريبة صعب إنها تشتغل، بس الذاكرة البعيدة هي اللي بتشتغل. فالمشكلة زي ما أنت تفضلت دكتور كميل، في مثلا صور، في أشياء إحنا من اجتهادنا الشخصي، فيا ريت والله تدلني على بعض المراكز في الإمارات وفي الأردن، يا ريت والله بكون شاكر.
شكرا عليا. I will answer in English. عليا، أنت بتعرفي إنجليزي؟ إذا حكيت إنجليزي؟
أنت ذكرت كامل أو اللبناني نسيت اسمه كحالة إنه نتابعها.
دكتور جميل زغيب.
أيوة.
Okay. So basically دكتور فتاح بحكي عربي ولا إنجليزي؟
It's fine. مش مشكلة عالية لو كان اللي جاي.
لا بفهم يعني بفهم. بس
okay. So basically Alia is asking us, she's asking us about, is there a way where we can rehabilitate people mentally or cognition? How can we rehabilitate memory? How can we work on the brain, not only work on the body? Like, okay, in the Middle East, in general, you will find a lot of these cases are actually being helped at several centers. Now, I don't know about Jordan. I will ask Uqab, but I know that we have some of this work being done in Lebanon. I have Saudi Arabia, some work done in a little bit in Kuwait, and some in Qatar, and some here in UAE. So wherever you are based, write to us and we can help you, because usually all you need to do is find the access method, make the diagnostics, and then you need to write the path. What needs to be done? What are the things that need to be done with this person? Usually we look at several short-term and long-term goals, and we usually do that with a therapist, because if someone has memory issues and someone has had an accident, they need to have a therapist involved. It's not only the parents or the family. So write to me, عليا اكتبي لي لو سمحتي. وأنا I would like to get involved in getting you someone to do the proper assessment for a path on how can we change the life of someone who's hopefully not curable, but someone who can actually communicate somehow.
إن شاء الله راح أبعث لك إيميل. بس المشكلة إنه زي ما أنت تفضلت موجود في العالم العربي، يعني في الإمارات وفي قطر هاي مراكز التأهيل، بس هي ما بتأهل يعني حسب أنا علمي. يعني أنا اللي كنت أتابعها الحالة الموجودة في الإمارات هي بس بتأهل الفيزيوثيرابي البناء الجسدي. وانت بتعرف انه حالات اصابة الدماغ دائما مشوشين، دائما منزعجين، صعب تسيطر على انك تعطيهم تمارين يعني خلينا نحكي للمدى البعيد، ملولين بسرعة.
لا عالية سوري، بس لا في يعني بعطيك مثال بروفيتا NMC، وزارة الشؤون هون، وزارة الشؤون، وزارة يعني Ministry of Community Development، وزارة تنمية المجتمع، كثير منهم عندهم هودي التولز. يعني في عندنا مركز النور، مركز راشد، ما بيعطوا بس الشخص فيزيوثيرابي، بيعطوه كمان اوكيبيشن ثيرابي وسبيتش ثيرابي حسب البلان تبعهم. ذاتس واي اللي عم بقول لك انا لما اعرف اكثر عن الشخص اللي عم تقولي لي عنه، ساعتها we will look into more what is the plan that needs to be written، وبنحكي عنها اكثر.
شكرا لك دكتور. ان شاء الله
شكرا عالية. انا بستنى ايميل منك
ان شاء الله.
دكتور حميد، في ميمونة او
ميمونة. اوكي Maimuna, you can speak. بعدين عندنا.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Camille, Mr. Mohammed, and Mr. Hamad. Thank you very much for the effective and influential topic. I have no arguments regarding the subject of the AT, but I have 3 comments or 3 points to raise. One of them is the assessment. As a teacher specialized in English as a language, I teach English, and as a teacher, I'm asked to monitor students in my class to figure out if I have special needs or not, or PODs. And sometimes I find it very challenging because I'm not specialist in the field. Are there any tools to figure out if a problem, specific student has specific problem? Second point, one of the challenges that may a teacher face or as a parent is affording the tools. And the third point, let me tell you, whatever device you'll be using, if you don't know how to accommodate your student emotionally, the device that is very objective will be useless. Like, for example, as a teacher, if I have a device, I'm using it in the class with my POD. If I cannot accommodate my student emotionally, that means it's 50% of the teaching is gone. Because some teachers will find like, I have 60 minutes or 40 minutes of teaching, that's it. I have to give A to Z topic and leave the class. But they always ignore that part of a human being. They just focus on the device itself. So these are the 3 things, but I just want a clarification about the point of assessment, if you don't mind.
Mimuna, thank you for your questions. I want to answer very quickly in the same order. Regarding diagnostics, diagnosing someone is not the job of the teacher. The teacher is the one that actually raised the flag. So in normal mainstream schools, the teacher is the first one that raises the flag saying, I've got issues, and then sends them back to administration to be checked. So you have someone specific in the school that is supposed to do that, that diagnostic. It's not you.
Yeah,
the assessment is not done by you.
Yes.
Yeah, so that assessment, I'll jump
so you mean, sorry for interruption, you mean to raise the doubt?
You raise the flag. You, as a teacher, what you learn over the years by working with hundreds of students is you establish what we call benchmark. You say in the back of your mind, even if you're not something in writing, but you know in the back of your mind that a student in grade such and such learning this topic should be at this level. Now, when you're teaching math, for example, or science to a child of this age in this topic, usually know very well that you got a range where, like, you know, you've got a range. You can say, I can have this kind of skill set. But once a child falls below them or above them, it doesn't need to be someone with disability. It could be someone who's genius, you know. So if you have someone above that bracket, which is the benchmark that you have set yourself as a teacher, you would raise the flag. You would put in a request for the child to be assessed.
You know what's the point of my question is to remove the burden over my shoulders, because alhamdulillah I have that benchmark, and I'm very clever at identifying the level of my students. But the point is that, like, when asked, I feel like it's a responsibility. But alhamdulillah, you clarified it's not, I'm not a specialist, but I can raise the doubt about a student or a flag, as you said. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's not your responsibility. Morally, it's responsibility to notice it. Now, if you don't tell anyone, God forgive you. If you don't tell anyone. This is why your job is to flag. Your job is to move on. Hey guys, I need someone to assess. Now I will move quickly to point number 3 when you talked about the emotional involvement or the emotional selection. Part of the assessment is not to look at the device. Now, back in the old days, if I am an IT person, I would say, oh, you need this kind of mouse. This is the mouse you need. That's it. I don't look at physical, mental, emotional. I don't look at that. But now it's different. Now there are hundreds of tests, what we call batteries of tests that are done to check the emotional and the disability level of a person. Now, when you come to select the assistive technology, you need to look, by the way, there's an amazing scale. Please, Mimuna, write to me, please. And if I remember, I'll put it in the email that we send you. But there is, I forgot. I don't know what's wrong with my coffee today. It's the scale that tells you that when you're selecting the technology for someone with a disability, you need to look at where he lives, how he speaks, how he doesn't speak, where does he sit, his parents, his carer, his bus driver, his teacher. You need to look at the environment.
Data and preferences, yes.
You look at everything. You don't look only at that child. You look at everything around them. So there is something about environment. There's something about immediate environment. There's something about the child themselves. So I forgot the name.
I'll make sure to contact you via info@consortworld.com. I'll send you an email.
Or via the university if when you want.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, Maimuna. Thank you. Any other question?
Two more.
We have two more persons raising their hands. Dr. Hamad, Hunaida.
Okay, Hunaida can speak now. Just unmute and then speak.
Thank you, Dr. Hamad.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
أحب أشكركم على الجهد الكبير ده، لكن أنا زي ما كتبت في السؤال، أنا بواجه بعض المشكلات، لأنه عندي بعض الطلاب عندهم احتياجات، حتى إنه أولياء أمور كانوا طلبوا مني إنه أبنائهم مثلا عندهم مشكلة بتاع التوحد، وخلاني ده أمشي أدرس عن إنه كيف نتعامل مع الشخص اللي يعاني من التوحد. في مشكلات كثيرة جدا جدا، ونفس المشكلة أنت ذكرتها قبل شوي. كان عندي طالبة تعرضت لحادث وفقدت الذاكرة. المشكلة إنه إحنا في الإعلام، أنا تخصص بدرس في مواد الإعلام، عندنا يعني بنتقدم، لا نحتاج فقط للتذكر، ولكن تحت المواد أحيانا تتطلب يعني التحليل وإيجاد الحل واقتراح حلول، يعني مهارات متقدمة. فأنا بتمنى إنه حقيقة ما بعرف في الوقت الضيق ده إذا كان ممكن تدينا، لكن بتمنى إنه تكون كمان في حلقة أكثر تخصص بالنسبة للأستاذ الجامعي كيف يتعامل مع هذه المشكلة. وعايز أعرف يعني بتواجهني بعض المشكلات، لو أديتني الآن يعني بعض النقاط إنه كيف أتعامل مع يعني المشكلة، لأنه يكون عنده يعني مشكلة، خلينا نقول إنه استيعابه يقل عن الطلاب. نفس الأشياء اللي أنت قدمتها، العناصر اللي هي بتساعد في الشرح، بتكون أحيانا صعب تطبيقها على مستوى كل الطلاب الموجودين عندي. والآن أنا بالمناسبة بواجه مشكلة عند طلاب، أو عندما يطول الزمن حتى يفقدوا المقدرة، يعني إذا افترضنا إنه الصف ساعة واحدة يفقدوا المقدرة على المواصلة من بعد ربع ساعة. دي برضو بعض المشكلات اللي أنا بواجهها. يا ريت كده، وأشكركم في الأول والآخر. شكرا لكم.
صحيح هنيدا، في عندك الكونسبت يعني تبع الاتنشن ديفيسيت، او عدم القدره على التركيز، يلي هو يعتبر واحد من سمات الاطفال اللي عندهم توحد، وفي عده اسباب له. يعني ما نحن مش حنحكي هلا طبيا او تشخيصيا، ولكن طريقه التركيز بيجي من التدريب. يعني نحن الولد لما بنشتغل مع الولد، تنعطيه التكنولوجي او تنعطيه طريقه تواصل او طريقه وصول الى المعلومه، عاده اذا قادر يعملها لوحده تمام، بس اذا ما قادر يعملها لوحده بيكون عندنا بالمدارس عندنا الاستاذ الظل او الشادو تيتشر، وبالجامعات عندنا الاسيستنت او التيتشر اسيستنت اللي كمان ممكن يكون مدرب. التركيز حيكون على التكنولوجي نفسها، يعني على الوسيله نفسها، لانه في بعض الوسائل ممتازه ولكن ما بتسمح للطفل انه مثلا او للشخص او للتلميذ انه يركز. انا بقول السر هون دائما هو بطريقه التشخيص، ما السر بالتكنولوجي نفسها. يعني انا ممكن اختار احسن تكنولوجي للعلاج تبع الطفل او للاكسس، ولكن اذا ما عرفت طبقها مع الشخص هذا مش حتكون مناسبه. لهالسبب بيقولوا البردن او تقل الموضوع مش لازم يكون عليك انت كمدرسه، لازم يكون على الشخص يلي بيعمل التشخيص للتكنولوجي لازم تستخدم. وبنرجع نحكي انه التكنولوجي منا للطفل لوحده، بس هي كمان للمحيط تبعه. يعني لازم يكون الاهالي الاهالي متدخلين، الاهل، الشادو تيتشر، الكيرر، النيرس، الاخوه، يعني الكل لازم يكونوا داخلين بهالتكنولوجي هيدي. ناو مش عارف اذا انا جاوبت صح ولا لا، بس اذا حسيتي انه ما جاوبت صح يا ريت تكتبي لي ايميل وبحاول انه اشرح اكثر.
Can I comment on this also?
يا ريت دكتور please.
Just in general, دكتور هنيدا، يعني in each university في كل جامعة في policies متعلقة بالسبيشال نيد وكيفية التعامل معهم والاستراتيجيات المتبعة. فمثلا في جامعة أبو ظبي في بوليسي خاصة في البيبل اوف ديترمينيشن، وشو الأشياء اللي ممكن يعملها عضو هيئة التدريس بالتعامل معهم. I think في الجامعات الأخرى نفس السياسات، في بعض سواء accommodation strategies ولا modification strategies which we can do while we are teaching the students، بس بدنا نصل لهالمعلومات هذه من الطرق الرسمية. وفي كل جامعة بالإضافة إذا جامعة أبو ظبي في students counselor اللي هي he's supporting us بالأشياء المتعلقة بالspecial need. Yeah, hopefully. Thanks a lot, Mr. Camille, for this informative
It's my pleasure.
workshop.
Thank you.
And as we discussed before, this will not be the last one. We will agree on having regular workshops in assistive technology, on behavioral modification strategies, on ABA, different communication, different workshops, inshallah, to empower our teachers, our therapists, in updated information related to all aspects related to special education and people of determination. Thank you all. Thanks again, Camille. It was a pleasure having you
Pleasure.
tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
And thanks, Dr. Hamad, for great support that you always provided, providing it for us. It's always our pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, true. Thank you very much.